Today, more than ever, companies are finding it harder to compete, differentiate, and win. Find out how global trends and forces are driving leaders to face new realities in operating businesses. Hi, I'm Pinky Webb, and today I'll be talking to Mr. Dominic Thurbon, partner in the Ernst & Young Climate Change and Sustainability Services team. Hi, Dom. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. At a time when markets are being disrupted and redefined by all kinds of forces, such as globalization, the dawning of the digital age, demographic change, as well as geopolitical issues, just to name a few, you say that the push for an integrated approach to sustainability becomes an imperative for all businesses. But what exactly does it mean to have an integrated approach to sustainability?
So when you look at the history of the way companies have thought about sustainability, it's typically been you have a strategy function, you then have a risk function, you then have a sustainability function, and then way off to the side, you might have a community investment or a responsibility function that tries to do some nice stuff in the community around the side. But increasingly, when you look at exactly the sort of competitive forces that you've described, I think what we're finding is that that approach is simply not sufficient anymore. And that bringing strategy, risk, governance, sustainability, and community around the table at the same time to build each of those functions into a strategy rather than bolt them on one after the other is the only way that companies are really able to build strategies that will stand up to the forces of disruption that they're facing.
You said that in truth, companies don't change. People do. So what kind of changes or shifts do leaders and their teams need to do in order to, as you say, get out of their silos? How can companies be transformed from within?
I think so often we find that companies don't go professionally where leaders don't first go personally. And that we're really used to thinking about enterprise transformation and organizational change and all these really complex frameworks that try to describe these complex systems. But in reality, obviously, it's individuals who run these organizations and make those decisions. And so my view is that actually the environment and climate change isn't our biggest challenge, and competitors are not our biggest challenge, and market forces aren't our biggest challenge. Our own legacy thinking is our biggest challenge, because in order to radically shift the way we do business, we actually need to radically shift our own beliefs and mindsets. I actually think the leadership journey begins strangely with humility. It's leaders having the humility to challenge their own way of thinking.
You cited studies of companies who have been successful in their sustainability journeys. Can you tell us what are some of the common characteristics that these companies have, one, and second, what lessons can Philippine companies actually take away from their experiences?
So number one, I think, is it's very hard to be successful without a commitment at the leadership level. I think organizations generally don't outperform the quality of their leaders. And so typically I think it needs to be a leadership-led conversation. But secondly, I think the other characteristic that underpins the most successful organizations is a willingness to think beyond compliance when it comes to sustainability. Sustainability is not about compliance. Sustainability is about competitive advantage and the way we tell stories to our customers and the way we engage the market. And so I think if leadership can make the commitment and we can think beyond compliance, that will typically be essential ingredients, I think, for organizations to be really successful.
All right, lastly, what would be the most important key message you would like leaders of Philippine companies to take with them from your or our conversation today?
I think the most important message to take from it is probably the sense of urgency that I think we need to have around this conversation. And when you look at the challenges that we face today, be it climate change or wealth inequality, or even just that businesses face, I think we're used to a sense that we have time to solve those problems. But if there's one thing that the market is showing us at the moment, it's that time is short, and that really leaders need to have a sense of urgency in the way they're approaching these conversations. So if there's only one thing to take from it, I think it's that.
All right, Dom, thank you so much for sharing with us how companies can stay ahead by, of course, embracing sustainability.
Thanks so much, Pinky.
Thank you. This is Pinky Webb for Ayala POV, where we never stop sharing progress with every Filipino.